Hello, and welcome to this bite-sized Getting Ready to Teach video on the T-Level Technical Qualification in Craft and Design. This video will cover assessment. The first assessment we will look at is the Employer Set project. This is a project coursework which is delivered under controlled conditions. It's marked by Pearson and is in similar structure to the Applied A-Levels or Tech Awards that centres might be used to. It's aimed at developing real-world skills to prepare for a career in the creative industries. In the assessment, students undertake the assessed elements of the project under supervised and controlled conditions. The assessment takes place over multiple sessions up to a combined duration of 19.5 hours. The project outcomes consist of a portfolio of evidence which will be submitted electronically. Students undertake a project in response to a realistic contextual challenge. The project is set and marked by Pearson. How does this differ from the core exams? There is a stronger focus on command verbs in the core exams, and there is also a stronger focus on traditional exam technique. The ESP is far more focused on specific skill development over a longer duration. This might be a good time to think or discuss about things that will identify this difference within the specification. Centres should recognise the need to equip learners with the skills that are needed to access this range of skills that you'll find in the documentation for the qualification. The core assessment is 100% externally assessed. It's not moderated like the occupational specialism. All evidence will be digital or will need to be digitised and submitted to Pearson. More information about controlled conditions can be found on the Pearson website. It's worth noting that this qualification focuses more on the core skills content, and the core knowledge is not directly assessed. This is done via the written exam. It's also worth noting that this will be contextualised for each occupational specialism, which will make it engaging and relevant, but it might not assess all of the occupational specialism's content. On screen is an example of an Employer Set project. Take some time to have a look at the content and the key requirements for each of the assessments. Administration providers must follow the guidance in the General Administrative Support Guide, the Administration Support Guide for the specific technical qualification for each ESP, and these are located in the Training and the Admin section of the website. Within the ESP, or the Employer Set project, students will take on 5 tasks, which you can see on the screen in front of you. These will be taking place under supervised and controlled conditions over multiple sessions. On screen are the assessment objectives. It's important at this point to have a look at those objectives and discuss them with colleagues so you can ensure that these are embedded in all teaching and learning that happens for the qualification. Consider how you might be able to prepare learners for this style of assessment. You may want to go onto the website and find the sample assessment materials and the additional sample assessment materials, as well as incorporating some opportunities for the core skills to be developed during any lesson consolidation tasks, homework, mocks or dry runs. One approach is to provide scaffolded tasks to begin with that follow the same style of assessment as the SAMs and the ADSAMs, and to ensure that learners understand the processes that they need to follow. Now would be a good time to pause the video and to discuss with colleagues what approaches you might use when planning and delivering the Employer Set project, and how this might differ from core exams. You might want to consider some approaches that you could use to engage students during the delivery. This might be influenced by your cohort sizes, whether or not you're co-teaching, ensuring relevant coverage of the specification, resources available to you including physical resources and staffing, any topics that can be taught together, any use of case studies or visits and external speakers, as well as mock assessments and ensuring coverage from a range of different sectors. Assessment. As you can see, there is assessment of the core material through the core paper and the employer set project, as previously discussed in this video. Alongside this is the assessment of the occupational specialism. There are 5 occupational specialist components in this technical qualification. As you can see, they all vary in terms of duration, marks and weighting, but are all available at the same windowed slot between March and May. These components will cover the occupational specialist knowledge and the skills required to demonstrate threshold competence for the specialism. The occupational specialism is assessed by a skills-related project that synoptically assesses the performance outcome, skills, and associated underpinning knowledge. Getting exam ready. The core content is assessed through a written paper, which is worth 60% of the core assessment, or 120 marks. Each section will be assessed through a combination of multiple choice questions or short open response items, medium open response items, and extended open response questions. If you ever had an opportunity to look through the sample assessment materials, you will have seen that the paper begins with accessible questions, which should encourage students to begin writing in the exam environment and start accessing the marks available to them. It will generally start with straightforward questions, which will then help the student to progress through the examination by ramping up in demand and difficulty. The examination is set and marked by Pearson. On screen is an example question. This is an example explain question. An important tactic when looking at this is that it says that it explains one benefit, but it's worth 2 marks. Learners should be able to understand before they go into the assessment that an explain question worth 2 marks requires both a definition and an explanation. A good way of thinking that is if a learner can put the words so that or because in between the 2 clauses, and therefore they would be able to access the 2 marks. On screen is another example question, which is 2 2-mark questions. It's worth 4 marks. Learners should be able to prepare for the fact that when they see a question like this, rather than them having to make 4 points, they need to explain 2 individual points. They will get 2 marks, 1 for each point that they make, and another 2 marks for explaining each question. So you could think of this as actually a 2 + 2 question rather than the 4-mark question. i.e., they need to make a point and explain, and then make a separate point and explain that to access the 4 marks. On screen now is an example extended exam question. As you can see, there is a context for the learners to engage with, which should give them a starting point. You can see that the question starts with the word evaluate, so before going into the exam, students should be able to understand what evaluation means and what kind of skills are required. Definitions for these words and these command verbs can be found in the back of the specification. On screen is a copy of a section of the mark scheme for the question that was on previously. The full mark scheme and the example paper are available on the website for you to download. From the full paper and mark scheme, you'll be able to see how the demands of the questions in relation to the scenario given will increase. On the left-hand side of the screen, we've got indicative content. This is simply the content that you may expect to see. If a student hasn't included all of this information, but has still given a strong answer that meets the criteria for level 3 in the marking grid, then they are still able to achieve full marks. Similarly, if a student has mentioned all of this, but has failed to use it to answer the question, they may not achieve full marks. Students can be awarded marks for other pertinent contextualised answers. So, if one of your students has written relevant information and put it into context in order to answer this question, then this should be awarded marks. This mark scheme and example paper are a useful tool in your teaching and learning practice to ensure that students can be developed to be exam ready. There are many peer activities that can be used for students to mark each other's work, or to reflect on their own work in order to ensure that they are reaching the appropriate level in order to access the higher marks. Have a think about what you might expect to see in your students' answers. Did this match up to the indicative content that you can see on screen? Is this something that you would not expect? If you look at the mark grid on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that there are 3 levels where marks can be awarded. When marking, it is often best to look at the level first and then decide where they sit within that. There are terms that will help you make this decision. So, for example, in a level 1 answer, there is going to be more basic analysis and basic application. There will be some attempt that's correct, but only at a basic level. For level 2, there will be good analysis and application, and for level 3, there will be mostly competent answers. Now would be a good time to pause this video and to discuss with colleagues how you can make sure that you can embed exam-ready techniques into your delivery throughout the course, right from the first day of teaching and learning. Command verbs. Command word taxonomy list is available in the BTEC specification. The following table shows the command words that were used consistently within assessments and to ensure that students are rewarded for demonstrating the necessary skills. The list on screen will not necessarily be used in every paper and is provided for guidance only, but it is worth spending some time looking at the command words with your class so they can easily identify the demands of a question in an exam setting. A comprehensive guide to command words can be found on the T-Level Bitesize Command Verbs YouTube video. It might be that one of your activities at the start of the course is to do a practical application that involves these command words. Discuss with colleagues how you might teach the demands of the command words to your learners. Is there anything that you've done in the past that's worked best for you? And have you got any ideas of how you can make this easy for your learners? Thank you for watching this bite-sized video for the T-Level in Craft and Design.